Hi, welcome to the third lesson on structure, which is a girl with a dragon tattoo. Today we're going to continue our understanding of the requirements of paper 1, question 3. We're going to be looking at a piece of text which is rather different than 1984, which we've looked at previously, with very different features. We're going to look quickly at detecting the features of a poor answer and practice answering paper 1, question 3. So how does the writer use structure to interest the reader? What that means is, what effect does the structure have on the reader? Would the reader have any questions or worries? You can comment about beginnings, endings, changes. It happened every year, was almost a ritual, and this was his 82nd birthday when, as usual, the flower was delivered. He took off the wrapping paper and then picked up the telephone to call Detective Superintendent Morell, who, when he retired, had moved to Lake Siljan in Dalarna. They were not only the same age, they'd been born on the same day, which was something of an irony under the circumstances. The old policeman was sitting with his coffee, waiting, expecting the call. It arrived. What is it this year? I don't know what kind it is, it's white. No letter, I suppose. Just the flower. Postmark? Stockholm. Handwriting, same as always, all in capitals, upright, neat lettering. With that, the subject was exhausted, and not another word was exchanged for almost a minute. The retired policeman leaned back in his kitchen chair and drew on his pipe. He knew he was no longer expected to come up with a pithy comment, or any sharp question which would shed new light on the case. Those days had long since passed. The policeman was a hardened veteran. During his career, he'd brought in poachers, wife-beaters, con men, car thieves, and drunk drivers. He'd dealt with burglars, drug dealers, rapists, and one deranged bomber. All in all, he could look back on an impressive career. He was anything but pleased. For the detective, the case of the pressed flowers had been nagging at him for years, his last unsolved and frustrating case. The situation was doubly absurd because after spending literally thousands of hours brooding on duty and off, he could not say beyond doubt that a crime had indeed been committed. After putting down the telephone, the 82-year-old birthday boy sat for a long time looking at the pretty but meaningless flower, whose name he did not yet know. Then he looked up at the wall above his desk. There hung 43 pressed flowers within their frames. Without warning, he began to weep. He surprised himself with this sudden burst of emotion after almost 40 years. What I've done here is I've highlighted some bits that I think are important. So the pronoun it is used both in the text and the dialogue, and we do find out it's a flower, but there's lots we don't know. They didn't exchange a word, which is more evidence that this is something that they've dealt a lot with before. There's not a great deal more to say about it for them. We then move on to this big yellow paragraph, which shows that the policeman had a very extensive, experienced and successful career in policing. But he wasn't pleased, but we're not sure why. There's some element of obsession, his last unsolved frustrating case. The birthday boy, the policeman who made the original call, has kept all the flowers. And unexpectedly, he begins to weep. All of this raises questions. So how does the writer use structure to interest the reader? So what we're really asking is, what effect does the structure have on the reader? What questions would you ask? Would you be sympathetic? Would it make you worried? The dialogue raises questions such as, who is sending flowers and why, using the pronoun it? Why is he weeping? The contrast of weeping against the expected strength of the police is one unexpected aspect of this text. Here is a grade 5 answer, put together with the class, just one paragraph, the first issue. The writer uses dialogue as a contrast to the text above. The text gives us the history of the two men in the past, but the dialogue describes what they know about the situation on the current day. The use of the pronoun it in both sections shows us that the situation is familiar to both men, which is intriguing. The reader would want to know more about the history of this situation, such as who sent the flowers and why. This is a grade 7 or 8 answer, again only addressing the first issue. The writer repeats the pronoun it to convey a sense of mystery about the item that's been received. This is because the reader has no idea at first what the police officers are talking about. We find out the item is a single flower which is sent every year. The reader is curious about the unknown aspects of the item that has been sent. There's a mismatch or a dissonance between the hardened police and the receipt of a flower in the mail every year. This might engage the reader to look for more information. For example, we don't know who sent the flower or why. Remember that you only need to pick 2 features and use the petal structure to explain and evidence these. So here is the question again. What do you think about this answer? The extract starts off by introducing an old man opening his presents on his birthday. It seems unusual as he phones the police about his presents. The writer organises the extract into paragraphs. These follow on nicely from each other and give a sequence to the text. There's some talking in it, and the writer sets all the talking out neatly so the reader knows who's talking and doesn't get muddled up. All in all, this is a very well structured story and leaves me wanting to know more. So do you think this is a good answer? These blue highlights show the bits that I don't think is a good answer. The writer organises the text into paragraphs. Well, that's true of all writing. Nicely, gives a sequence, neatly, very well structured. These are all very vague statements, but you're not being specific, you're not using any technical language, you're not explaining why it hooks the reader in. And it says leaves me wanting to know more, but why? You haven't said why, so it's not a sufficient answer. It would not get any or many marks. You can stop the video to see these ways of phrasing your answer. So when you come to me and say, I don't know how to start, here are some clues. So you can stop the video, maybe copy a few of these down. Here are some questions about the text. So how can we actually answer the question? Well, we've already done the bit about the beginning. The writer starts by, and this makes the reader feel. So what we're saying is what he's doing and what the effect it has on the reader. There's a passage of dialogue. The reader isn't given much information. So we're still wondering about these flowers, or this flower. And then what I got the students to do in the lesson was do these 2 parts. The writer shifts the focus to and gives the reader a clear picture of, and finally we're told about. So we're talking about the description of the policeman's career, the flowers, the number of flowers, and also the fact that it makes him weep at the end. Okay, so the question that I asked the students to write a petal paragraph on was, why is he weeping? And the contrast of weeping against the expected strength of the police. So these were the objectives, and that was the end of the lesson.